Hello, and welcome to episode 78 of the Wine Educate podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Close, and today we're talking all about the Languedoc. This is particularly exciting for me because, as you may or may not know, Mom and Dad bought a vineyard here 25 years ago. So this has been my stomping ground. Certainly go every summer, bring the kids to see Mom and Dad. And now I've started offering these wine trips. Gives me even more excuses to go back and see how my parents are doing and to visit this extraordinary, and I might say slightly underrated part of the world. I have certainly had some of my best meals of my life in this region and some extraordinary wines. It is an exciting time to be in the Languedoc. Literally watching a wine region rediscover itself. So, in general, we are in the south of France, and your level 3 book divides the south of France up into Provence, Languedoc, and the Roussillon. So if you could sum up the Languedoc, and who best to sum things up than Jancis, our hero, Jancis Robinson, in the Oxford Companion, the first lines when you look up Languedoc are France's best value. And she's not wrong. But there is a lot of complication in this statement and a lot of history. The Languedoc, as we mentioned, is a really large area. And here, the IGP wines are very important. We've been discussing other regions, and we've been talking a lot about appellations. So I'm going to take a moment just to review. So, geographical indicators inside the European Union are broken up into two quality categories. Our protected designation of origin, or PDOs, and these are the smaller regions with tighter regulations. So things like AOCs in France and DOCs in Italy. And then the second category, the protected geographical indication, or PGIs. These are larger regions with less tight regulations. France, the term for this is IGPs. There are more IGP wines made here, meaning the Languedoc, than in any other region of France. So this is how important they are. 60% of France's IGP wines come from this region. So let's talk about the history of this region just a little bit. First of all, the name Languedoc comes from the Occitan language. Oc was the word for yes. So Languedoc literally means the language of Oc. Here we have three core departments, the Aude, the Hérault, and the Gard. Historically, they were suffixed together, the Languedoc-Roussillon, but in 2016, Languedoc broke free and is now no longer hyphenated with the Roussillon. The city of Narbonne used to be a very important port for Rome. It was called Narbo, and there's a lot of trading going on here. And where the Romans are, so are wines. So there was lots of grapes planted in this region. It is a Mediterranean region, and in Mediterranean region, it's easy for grapes to grow. They get lots of sunshine, lots of heat to ripen. One problem can be drought, which is certainly an issue in this region. There's 13 different named winds. Don't worry, you only have to know two of them for level 3, and that is the Tramontane and the Mistral. With these winds, you get low disease pressure. So it's actually easier to do things like organic viticulture because the vines dry up after the rain. It gets so windy here that we were sitting outside having a nice little lunch, and we had an umbrella to shield us from the ever-present sun. My dad, being an engineer, decided to tie the umbrella to the picnic table. This is a heavy wooden table that seats about 12 people. Well, he essentially just created a parasail because the wind came, filled up the umbrella, lifted the table up, and carried it across the deck. A bit dramatic, but to show you just how intense the wind is here, just how strong, and what an important part it is in the viticulture here. With all this lovely weather, lots of grapes were planted. And then in 1855, the train arrived. So now there was a train leaving from Narbonne all the way up to Paris, and then a few years later to Bordeaux. And the train facilitated the transportation of all these grapes, and the Languedoc became the supplier of France for their inexpensive wine. So the real downside to this was it led to the overcropping of vines and the production of some rather thin, uninteresting wines. And sadly, this is still a bit of a reputation in this region for these plonky wines, which I can tell you there are some extraordinary wines being made here. So let's talk a bit about the appellation structure. In 2018, we had about 27,000 hectares of vines planted in the Languedoc. The Languedoc-Roussillon area makes up only about 1/8 of France's total appellation wines. There is a Languedoc AOC, the generic appellation covering the full vineyard area, and a bit slow with creating other appellations. So Fitou was the first region within the Languedoc to get its own AOC, and this was back in 1948. And then it took a while for other ones to get recognized. But in 1985, some other appellations were created, things like Corbière, and also some important sub-appellations. So these are some of your level 3 book mentions. In Minevois, you have La Livanière, and in Corbière, you have Boutenac. 2015 was an exciting year for Chateau Campbell's, Mom and Dad's vineyard, because that year, the Le Clap AOC was founded. Before then, the wines could only be called Côte de Languedoc, which is a huge appellation. So it's very exciting when Le Clap got its own appellation 10 years ago now. In this region, red wines do dominate. We know the red wines prefer these lovely warm temperatures. The Rhone grapes kind of trickle down, so we see a continuation of Carignan, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre when it is warm enough, because Mourvèdre likes a lot of heat to ripen. Indeed, when my parents bought the vineyard, there was some Mourvèdre planted, but it wasn't warm enough, so they had to take it out. You do have quite a diversity of styles and soil types in this area. It is so large. I like this description of the best wines that Jancis said in Oxford. The best wines are, quote, a dense, exciting, increasingly supple ambassador of some of France's wildest countryside. And I really like that. There's rosé made here. Well, they better be rosé made here because in the summer it is hot and we need to drink some rosé. Before Mom and Dad made any rosé, we would end up buying cases and cases of Picpoul. Picpoul is this lovely high acid wine that just goes so beautifully with the seafood in this area. There is also traditional method sparkling made here in the appellation of Limoux, which is higher up in the foothills of the Pyrenees and makes some really stunning wines. This is a hard episode to record because I have so much to say. I do really love this region, and if you are interested in joining us on one of our trips this summer, I have a Zoom meeting coming up. I hope you can join us. And as always, if you have any questions, you can email me or just hit reply to the newsletter. I would encourage you to sign up for the newsletter. Yesterday, I had a Chianti quiz go out, and next week I will do a quiz for the Languedoc. All right, friends. So next week we will talk about the Roussillon, and I hope you have a lovely weekend.